Okay, so David, really lovely to have you here today. We are really, really happy we've got the time to share with you and for you to share your experience about KnowRX and the building of your company, basically. So, David, before we get started, I always like to start with a little bit of an introduction from the speaker themselves, get to know a little bit about you. So, tell me, who is David Franklin?
Yeah, thank you. Well, amazingly, it's a little bit of a self-discovery for myself too.
Uh-huh.
So, but long story short, if you will, I am a Gulf War Navy veteran, so I have a military background and experience, and that was actually very important in how I navigated through my professional career. Interesting as we progress through time. Job titles today didn't exist back then, but essentially I was a solution architect in communications while in the Navy. But the Navy also taught me about community service and advocacy and outreach, and helped build some core values, resilience, grit, discipline, and just establishing me there firmly as a person from a young boy, a young man into manhood. For me, that was pivotal time because I was 18, 19, 20 going through the Gulf War, and I was in Bahrain. Later, I transitioned out after 8 years of service, went into the tech community. Fortunately, I participated in 2 IPOs. And then from there, I went into consulting. As a consultant, I became an application engineer, designing applications for today, the Salesforce App Exchange, and really just starting to learn how to be a creative innovator and just really connecting. But the connecting part of who I am, as much as it is career, it's from a personal level. So on a personal level, I started looking in. Consciousness, awakening, neuroplasticity, mindfulness, meditation, which has really strengthened my resilience as an entrepreneur as I transferred out of corporate. So that's a little bit about me. I'm currently residing in Austin, Texas. I've been here 24 years, but I'm originally from St. Louis in Southern California. Mm-hmm. And this is where we're at today.
Mm-hmm. It's a big array of experience you've got, and obviously any kind of military service has a huge effect on who you are, the kind of qualities that you carry in and for the rest of your life. But come back to that in a second. So now tell me a little bit of on your LinkedIn. I had a look at your LinkedIn. We've done some kind of research into your company as well, obviously, and on your LinkedIn, you have a sentence, the first sentence in your bio saying, changing lives through technology. How do you do that? What is your mission at KnowRX? How do you change the lives through technology?
Yeah, so it actually started with life and birthing a new company. In companies, especially early stage, they're like babies and little kids, they sort of follow that same pattern. But in 2018, I lost my father. He passed away due to a medication side effect while in an ICU. And this is, one thing I'd say is I found life and death. In a death scenario, I found new life. And that life is the youngest of 7. I was upset. I was mad. I wanted to blame somebody for losing my father. But as a technologist, I wanted to fix something and help the community of patients and consumers of a healthcare system. So this is how changing life through technology. Specifically at KnowRX, what we do, and we have 2 sides of KnowRX. We have EPCare and we have the AL app. EPCare works with pharmaceutical companies in the recruitment, the retention, and site selections of clinical research. This is important because we need better data that produces better drugs. 80% of drugs that are passed through the FDA have insufficient data for all the people who take them, specifically in the underrepresented communities. So we need better data, which means better participants. On the other side, the AL app, and this is really what was directed or came out of my experience with my father, is helping consumers, whether they're on medication or not, or helping patients who are actively being monitored by a physician, is have better conversations, increase their health literacy, and improve their medication adherence based off the medications that they're on, thereby empowering them as a patient, and hopefully we can improve their quality of life. And this is how technology can be used to change lives.
Absolutely. So your company has more than just a company kind of value. It's more of a personal value. It's an experience that you've gone through, which obviously you don't want anyone else to go through. And I always believe those kind of companies are always stronger because they have more of a meaning to them. They have more of a reason to be here, So yeah, exactly. Tell us a little bit about how all of this experience you've had in all of these different fields, especially in the military as well. You talk about grit and commitment. How has that helped to building KnowRX now? What has been kind of the most valuable thing that you've got to help you build KnowRX?
Well, really, it's
RX. Sorry, no RX.
It's really the commitment to serve and serve a greater cause, serve a greater community. KnowRX is not about us as individuals, it's how we can serve a greater community. So that's one thing. And then resilience and having grit and fortitude to make it through the entrepreneurial challenge. So as I progressed through my professional career, whether it was military or sales ops or marketing or customer service, now being able to take all of these things together has really allowed me holistically to form a company, to birth a company, and to bring in strategic people in these areas to help strengthen and take us where we need to go. But really, it's tapping into something greater than us and realizing that we're all connected, and that the common thread through us is through healthcare, healthcare systems, healthcare for individuals, and ensuring that what we do can help their daily lives and routine.
And extremely important, isn't it? It's an extremely important program app for people to be able to use in order to save lives, in order to change lives as well, and change the way people are living. I've seen, obviously, the app and the product that you provide is in depth. It is huge. It's got more than just obviously a scheduling kind of process of knowing when is just when you should be taking your medicine. It's more, you've got obviously meditation and mindfulness and some tips as well there. What were the challenges which came with creating an app like this?
Well, patience. You need a lot of patience. We are servicing a big problem for a large community, and it takes a big solution. And it's hard that not everybody can grasp the totality of what we're trying to undertake. So it takes us longer to connect the dots, to align everything from end to end management of what we need to do to help that person through this scenario. So it's nice that you saw and you mentioned the mindfulness and meditation. And this is one of those things on a personal development level. I'm a certified workforce mindfulness facilitator. I'm a positive neuroplasticity teacher. So I've taken these things personally, and then through that learning, I've been able to incorporate this. And this is where, and we can talk about this more as well, is from our machine learning aspect. What we do something very uniquely here is, although we track and identify the medicine, what we're really looking at is the probable side effects of those medications. So if a side effect of a medication causes anxiety, then we will provide complementary educational information around mindfulness, around breathing, around meditation, right? Not knowing what the probability of the side effect may be, we want to counter and complement that medication with these things. And it could be nutritional as well. Maybe you need to increase your fiber, but how do you naturally increase your fiber? So we want to, this is how we look at medication. This is where the machine learning comes in to help identify what sources of information we need to provide to you to increase your literacy, health literacy, and your awareness while you're on this medication.
Wow. So it's literally taking kind of the process as it was from the past to the future. Yeah. So putting, not just you need to take this medication, take it. It comes with all of these other processes, all of these other advantages with it as well, which is something obviously I haven't heard of before. And obviously being in health as well, everyone needs this. It's not just a specific industry. Yeah, everyone needs something like this because it will affect all of us.
Yeah, because the reason why that's important too is, for example, in the United States, there were 4.5 billion drugs dispersed in 2021. There's 320 million citizens in the United States. So if you just look at that ratio, it's probably 10, 12 to 1 ratio. But there's a lot of people that are not on medication. We've designed the application so even if you're not on a medication, you can still benefit from incentives, rewards, nutrition, wellness, mindfulness, different aspects of it to keep you engaged. So in the event you're on a medication, you're already, from a behavioral change perspective, you're already adapted and you're used to using this, and it helps you that experience, therefore increasing the probability of a better exchange while you're on that medication.
Definitely. So really an app for all, a process for all. With obviously with a company like this, with a product like this, it requires a lot of minds, a lot of hands. Speaking specifically about employees, the demand obviously for tech now these days and tech talent is outpacing the supply available. Obviously, it's really difficult now to find the talent because it's needed everywhere. How did you go about finding the right talent, the right employees for KnowRX, and what kind of attributes, what kind of qualities do you look for when you hire?
Well, there was, so my co-founder is a clinical research physician, and we've known each other easily 10 years. So after the passing of my father, I reached out to him and we created this new company. And along with that, we brought on Brenda Conwell, who is a part of our executive leadership team, who's a senior scientist with probably over 30 years of clinical research and operations. In addition to that, Michael Johnson, he's worked with me previously from a technology standpoint, but also he has a healthcare background and he's a military veteran. He was a helicopter respiratory technician, so he did flight service. And then Anthony Andrews served with me in the military. So these are people close to me. The level of trust, the level of loyalty is already there. We're all very well positioned in our careers and we have a good business background. But in addition to that, there's skill sets we don't have. We're good in certain areas, but how big the platform is, we needed help other places. So we started offshore. One, to minimize costs, to help accelerate. And we started on a team there, and we worked with that team through our MVP. And now we continue to work with other offshore teams looking for this help that have expertise in healthcare, expertise in gaming, wellness management, different things like this, to where we may not have that exact technical background, but we can help lead and coach them in the development efforts, what we need to do. So we look for areas like that, but more inwardly, we look for people who have the same passion, who's passionate about healthcare, making a change in their lives and other people's lives, more so than say what their professional career is. They have to tie to the mission. They have to tie to the values and our passion. And then the other things can be learned easier.
Is that difficult to find?
Not necessarily. It's not that difficult to find. It's just more about timing, more so. and how we can absorb talent and bring them into what we're doing from a cost perspective, more so than anything else.
Absolutely. So talking about obviously costing and hiring teams outside of obviously your immediate team, outsourcing, what are the challenges that you have found coming with outsourcing, and what are the positives, pros and cons?
Yeah, I mean, there's typical challenges or barriers to outsourcing. One of it's the time difference sometimes. But what we do to counter the time difference is to play ahead, to make the team more playing forward versus trying to play catch up. So we don't necessarily need them on our schedule. We need them ahead of our schedule, right? To work their normal hours, right? We need that small overlap of time, but we don't necessarily need them on our full schedule. Like we don't need resources like that, because then we're in the same motion when we're trying to work faster, not at the same speed. So the timing can be a challenge at times. Not necessarily the language barrier in most cases, and it's easier for us because from a business standpoint, English is the dominant language. From an offshore standpoint, so it's not a language barrier, it's a comprehension from the task, right? So it's hard for somebody to work in healthcare regardless of the language if they don't understand healthcare. It becomes a bigger gap when you go offshore if they don't understand the industry or the terminology or understand how we manage our medication and our schedules, because that could vary country by country. So that's very key is for us going offshore is finding not only the technical language, but the industry language.
Absolutely, because you can still be fluent in a language and not know much about that industry at all, can't you? So difficult to find. So obviously planning ahead is obviously extremely important. And when you're talking about obviously going offshore, is there a specific place you usually go to? Is there a specific country that you outsource to, or is it depending really on too many variables?
No, I mean, there's default. A lot of people, and I've used corporations in India. I've also used corporations in Mexico, which is more of a nearshore model. I've had in this current operation and previously with my co-founder, we used a company in the Ukraine, in Kyiv, which is a very difficult place and time right now. But more important to that is even now, I receive requests from companies outsource, we'll say just outsource consulting firms, development firms. And I know that, this is sort of maybe a little off topic. I know they're still working very hard in that area, in being resourceful and trying to put money back into their country. So for me, it's very important to realign there versus somewhere else, because as a veteran, I'm tied. I feel connected to that experience. Therefore, I want to invest. If not, I can't directly invest
somehow,
right? But I can help by working with these companies who are, caught in between a very difficult situation, and yet you see not just their level of dedication to their country, but their work ethic. Right? And we had very good success using them high quality type of service and reliability in the past.
It's good to hear. We're based in Ukraine. We're based in Lviv. It's where we've got most of our employees. I lived in Kyiv before obviously the war happened, the war started. But most companies now, most IT companies have adjusted very quickly. They've moved to the West, moved to safety. as long as we can hope it will be safe here, and continue to work. And what I've noticed as well is these people don't stop. There's nothing that stops them. Even people who are on the kind of borders of more dangerous places, they're still fulfilling the commitments which they've got, and work for them, work for Ukrainians. I'm British, but working for a Ukrainian founded company. I can see how these guys don't stop. And how they're committed to do it. So it's really good to hear that from you as well. And actually good to hear that you obviously are trying to support and continue in any way possible, the way that you feel possible through your means and work as well. A question on that then. So would obviously, with this happening, with the war in Ukraine at the moment, is it something that would put you off? Say you're looking to outsource now. Is it something that would put you off maybe because of reliability, because we don't know which way the war is going to go? Or is it still something that you would risk and say, actually, I want to help, I trust them? What would you kind of feel here?
Well, the thing is, and I've probably spoken with, a handful of companies over the past 30 days, and through personal relationships in the Ukraine. And from my perspective, because I didn't know this was taking place, and we probably think everybody's focused on this objective right now. What I didn't realize is, like what you said, they're still working. They're still trying to maintain a sense of normalcy and routine. And a lot of these companies have had good contingency plans, and they moved west, or they moved to Poland, or different things like this, or they moved key personnel there so they can continue operations. And that's unbelievable, and it's really nice to want to embrace that spirit. And I want to help get that message out there, because first we will do exactly what you said. We can't risk going there because we don't know the outcome, but we don't understand the situation of these businesses, how they've taken good steps to preserve their workforce and their commitments, not just to their country, because from what I know is that they take the profit after they secured their people, and they reinvest it back into the country to help their people. And you have to be very respectful of that. It's very important right now to strengthen them in that way, from my perspective. So for me, it's very important to help other companies here understand, hey, it's still safe. You can go this way. There's, they've mitigated the risk, right? And there's ways that you can still utilize them in this way. And even I've recently spoken to somebody in Austin from the Ukraine, from Lee, and they just reinforce the same messages from the business side. So it's very important we help get that message out, that the risk, there's risk everywhere. We can look at, say, India, and there's risk of turnover, just employee turnover. That happens very frequently. And we have to adapt around that. This here would be no different. And at least I can say the Ukrainian businesses have taken the proper steps to help reduce the probability of risk to the best of their ability.
Absolutely. And it's the idea that for people that can't serve in the military, people that can't help out physically, by continue to work, by continue to fulfill their contracts, they are in turn basically helping out the country, helping out the economy. The contingency plans that they've got are very, very strong, and was kind of prepared, because obviously there's been a war that's gone on in Ukraine for many years before this. Okay, really nice to hear. A bit more about machine learning. So obviously the potentials of using machine learning are obviously undeniable. At scale, they're huge, but obviously something that comes with many challenges as well. Obviously you work with machine learning for Maestro ML, I believe. What were the difficulties of putting this product together?
Well, it's really the aggregation of data, and understanding where the data is coming from. So our data pulls from hospital systems, ICD-10 codes, So we have to understand translation of information between, say, medical or clinical to consumer. We have objective data from consumers coming in from the mobile application, wearable information, Bluetooth connected information, and then we just have credible resource of documentation that we're pulling in and we're keying off of from a natural language processing. So here, as you know, and I go back to, if you imagine 4.5 billion prescriptions, and you look at the schedules associated to them, so the schedules are going to be 3, 4, 6 times that. So you're looking at 20, 40 billion records of data here. At some point, we're not there yet, but at some point, as data matures, the volume increases, and this is why this is important. So when we look at, again, the medication drives the information around the side effect, and we start looking at all this information, we hope to be able to identify more accurate probability of side effects. When you look at the objective data from the patient, you look at DNA markers over time, the uniqueness of who the patient is, and you trend that analysis. And then not only will we look at the probability of side effects, but then we look at the recommendations, or say the complementary services. This side effect, this medication, we send in this nutritional information, this wellness information, this holistic, this Ayurvedic information to this patient to help them in their outcome. Eventually, the ML will lead to an AI service that we have planned out and roadmap, both for the clinician and for the patient, an interactive AI widget inside of the application or platform for the patient to engage with and interact with. But it's really the machine learning that's driving that behavior.
Mm-hmm. So the work with all of that information together, obviously a huge amount of information that it needs to process.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Definitely it comes with its challenges for sure.
Yeah. You're beyond millions of records or tens of millions. You're looking at hundreds of millions to billions of records of data. And then that's just in 1 year. Then you expand it over multitudes of years, and the wealth of data here is astronomical.
Absolutely. With regards to the future, where do you want to go with KnowRX? Where do you see yourself, let's say in a couple of years' time, 5 years' time? What would you like to have achieved?
Within that time, we should be the primary vehicle for pharmaceutical companies, sponsors, to leverage in their recruitment and retention of new patients. And the outcome of that will be better drugs being developed for everybody. That's on the clinical and the industry side. On the consumer side is really driving medication adherence, being a leading application that drives adherence, which eventually reduces readmissions and improves the quality of life of everyday people. I know in losing my father, I couldn't help in that scenario. And I know that I can't, we don't understand the timeline of life. So we can't lengthen, change the outcome of life itself. But each day while you're on a medication, we can help improve or give you the availability to improve the quality of your life, whether it's through mindfulness, meditation, whether it's through dietary changes, whether it's through exercise. We can help in that way. And we want to be known as a patient platform for the people, for patients, and give them a better health outcomes.